So, good afternoon and I welcome you to the 9th lecture of this week, that is the second week. As you remember, we have been talking about the strategic planning process and how it is linked with performance. And in the process, we first discussed about what does it mean to say that we are going to plan about the performance, and then in the next class we talked about environmental analysis, that how we identify the environment, external and internal environment, to identify the gap, and based on that we are going to take up the next step, that is looking at the vision and mission statement of the organization. Once vision and mission statements are defined and articulated, then we move to the next step, that is based on this you identify what are your goals that you want to achieve. Now, based on these goals, we are going to see that whether you are able to achieve those goals or not, and these goals also act as a yardstick, that is as a criteria for performance when you want to evaluate it. Now, in order to achieve these goals, organizations make certain strategy at different levels, right. So, in this lecture basically we are going to talk about these issues related to goals and strategies. So, now we are moving to this 9th lecture, that is strategic planning and performance, and specifically we are looking at the role of goals and strategy in the process. Now, when we are talking about goals and strategies, the first thing is that we need to define about what do you mean by the goal, right. Now, why we are going to set goals, okay, and why we need to formalize statements related to the goal. Okay. So, when we are going to say that yes, we are going to set goals, the idea is to formalize what exactly we want to achieve as an individual, as a unit, as an organization, okay. And this could be in the short term as well as in the long term, right. So, the goal has to be defined in such a way, so that it is going to act as a director to the organization, that yes, this is what we need to achieve within a given time frame. It could be in the short term or a medium term or even in the long term period, right. So, once you have identified the goal, the objective is to see that yes, this is what we want to achieve. So, you are actually formalizing your expected achievement. So, when you say that yes, the department has certain goals or the organization has certain goals, for example, you say that you want to achieve 10% of the market share, okay, in a particular business or a product, it means that you have formalized your achievement that you want to expect in the business. So, that is the first point. So, once you have formalized, you have formalized your expectations from the business in terms of what you need to achieve, and these goals also act as a motivator. Why? Because you know that this is what we need to achieve, and all your efforts, all your drives are there to see that you are able to achieve. See, when we are talking about motivation, that is what? It is a goal directed behavior, right. So, motivation is defined as a goal directed behavior. So, once you have identified the goal, it also acts as a motivator, and all your behavior is directed to achieve these goals and objectives, right. Next, you have to ensure that when you are talking about the goals and objectives that is to be achieved, okay, it is in the tangible terms. Tangible terms, which means that it is concrete, okay, in hard terms which can be verified. Okay. So, we need to make sure that when we are talking about tangible targets, we are basically talking about objective specified goals that could be achieved in concrete terms, right. Now, this goal also acts as a basis for taking decisions. Okay. So, whatever decisions you are taking or whatever behavior you are making is basically going to be directed towards achieving the goals and objectives. So, it also provides a basis for taking decisions, okay. And then these decisions are going to be good in the sense that if you are going to take bad decisions, then it is not going to help you to achieve or realize those goals. So, make sure that you are engaging in goal directed behavior. Second, you have targets which are more tangible in nature, then you are taking such decisions which help you to achieve these goals, okay. And later on it also acts as a basis for measuring the performance, because you have to see that the extent to which you are contributing to performance depending upon your goal as an individual or your goal as a business unit or as a goal for the corporate. So, the goals could be different at different levels, and these goals could be acting as a criteria for measuring the performance at different levels. Now, we are going to discuss something different related to goals. What are the various issues when it comes to goal setting? Now, if you look at goal setting theory, it talks about certain issues related to how we are going to set the goals. Okay. Now, if you look at some of these points, like it should be smart. What does it mean to say that goals should be smart? When we say that goals should be smart, it basically talks about it has to be specific, as I discussed earlier. It should be in measurable terms. Make sure that it is as objective as possible, so that you can measure it in quantitative terms. Then achievable, something that you can achieve. So, when it comes to setting goal, make sure that you are not going to stress too much, or you are not going to set your goals too high, which is very difficult to achieve. So, now you see that how this alignment works when it comes to goal setting. You have done environmental analysis, you have identified your vision and mission. Based on that, you are setting goals. So, make sure that it is in alignment with your vision and mission statement, and it helps you to cope up with the challenges of the environment, right. So, when it comes to setting the goal, make sure that you are going to set goals in such a way, so that it fulfills your expectations in terms of your vision and mission. Okay. It also helps you to cope up with the challenges of the environment. Okay. So, you are going to set your goals in such a way, so that it could be achieved, okay, and it is to be realistic. So, setting too high goals or setting too low goals are not good, whether it is for the individuals or for the organizations. So, make sure that you are going to set your goals which are very realistic, which could be achieved within a given time frame. Okay. So, that is why we call it smart goals, right. Now, there are certain other issues related to the goal, like goal commitment. You remember we just talked about motivation. Okay. So, the motivation factor is very important, that you should be motivated enough to make effort to achieve the goals at any level, right. Now, this motivation is possible provided you are committed to the goal. Okay. So, the level of engagement and commitment that an individual or an organization has towards achieving the goal is going to set a precedent, or you can say it is going to set an example that yes, this is how we are going to achieve the goal. So, commitment is very important in terms of attitude, in terms of behavior. Okay. So, you have to see that when you are going to commit to the goal, basically you are making more effort. So, commitment is another important factor, which is very important in the sense that it helps you to achieve the goals that you have set at different levels. Another important issue is importance of the goal, how important the goal is for you. Okay. And there could be variations across units, across individuals, when it comes to setting priority so far as achieving goals is concerned. Now, when I am talking about goal importance, that how you view the goal. Okay. If you think that this goal is very important, it is going to contribute, it is relevant, it is critical to achieve the targets, then the level of commitment and motivation increases. But if you think that goal is not important, it is not relevant, it is not that critical, it does not contribute, then it loses in importance and you do not work for it. Okay. So, you are going to set your goals in such a way, like I just discussed, like it has to be specific, measurable, achievable, should be achieved within a given time frame, so that you are committed to it, and then you think that yes, it is very critical to achieve this kind of goal. Okay. So, it is not only committing to the goal, but also setting your priorities, because there could be different goals. So, which goal has to be taken up on a priority basis and why, that is to be decided, so that you are giving more emphasis, more effort on those goals which are more critical, which contribute more to the performance, right. Another important factor is related to the individual, okay, which is known as self-efficacy. So, when we are talking about self-efficacy, basically it is related to, the kind of confidence or belief that you have that yes, you will be able to achieve it. Okay. For example, as an individual, if I think that okay, this is the goal which I have, but if I do not have the confidence or the capability probably I will not be able to achieve it. So, if I believe that yes, I have the capability, I can do it successfully, I can perform my task successfully. So, this variable which is known as self efficacy basically helps you to achieve goal in a befitting manner, or you can say that you will be able to achieve it the way you like it, right. Another important factor is task complexity, and when I am talking about task complexity, the idea is here is that achievement of goal also depends upon whether the task is simple or complex, right. If the task is simple, then achieving the goal is very easy, but if the task becomes complex, then it becomes difficult for you to achieve the goal. So, if you have set difficult goals which are very complex in nature, then the other factors like commitment, self efficacy contributes to this process. For example, you are going to perform a task where you are going to do certain easy steps, then it becomes simple, but you are going to perform a task which is very complex. So, see how we are going to define task complexity. What does it mean? When you are going to perform different kind of tasks which requires different kind of skill set, then the task is to be considered as complex, right. So, if you are going to perform complex tasks, it means that you require the kind of knowledge and skill which you have to complete it, because this requires a different set of knowledge and skill, different type of abilities, okay, to perform different kind of tasks. Okay. So, if the task complexity increases, the probability of achieving the goals goes down if you are not competent enough. Okay. So, you also need to see that you believe in yourself, you have the confidence, and you think that yes, you are capable to do it, then even if the task is complex, you will be able to do it, otherwise it is very difficult for you to achieve it. So, these are some of the issues that I wanted to discuss, and now finally is goal framing, that how we are going to set the goal. At the very first point that we discussed is that yes, it should be smart, but it is not enough. Who is involved in the process in framing the goals? The individual, the group, or you are adopting a bottom up approach or top down approach. For example, at the individual level, it could be based on the consensus between the supervisor and the individual. Okay. At the group level, the group can decide what are the goals that is to be achieved, right, and there has to be a consensus among the group. At the business unit, it could percolate down from the organization. Okay, this is the goal that this department has or this unit has, which is going to contribute to the performance of the organization. So, you have to see that this goal framing process is going to be different and variable at different levels, starting with the organization. So, organization might have a different set of goals to achieve, and we have to see that who are going to be involved in the process. There could be senior managers. Down the line at the middle level, when it comes to operational units or business units, other departments, middle managers have a very important role to play in the process, and they decide what are the goals that is to be achieved and how it is to be decided, right. Then at the individual level, individuals in consultation with the supervisors, line managers and HR can decide what is to be achieved, which contribute to the business goals and objectives. So, basically when it comes to goal framing, you need to ensure the alignment is there, starting with the individual goal, group goal or business goal and the organizational goal. Moving further, we have talked about goals. Now, we are going to talk about strategies. Okay. So, in order to achieve these goals, we need to develop certain strategies, that is an action plan or what you know as game plan, okay, or how to go about it so that you are able to reach the goals or the objectives, right. So, because these strategies are related to growth, survival, stability, innovation, leadership, all kind of things. So, we have to discuss it in such a way so that we are able to understand how strategies contribute to the goals and objectives of the organization. But in order to understand that, we have to see what are the different kind of strategy at different levels, what are the different types of strategy that is adopted by the organization in order to achieve the goals and objectives in general and particularly at different levels. Now, if you look at the type of strategy, here I have presented a hierarchy of strategy, right. Now, what I mean by hierarchy of strategy, that strategy could be at 3 different levels: the corporate strategy, the top level; business strategy, that the unit level, business unit levels; and then functional strategy at the operational level. at the different department level. Now, these three strategy or this hierarchy of strategy has to be seen at different levels. So, when we are talking about corporate strategy, the idea is that how this business is going to contribute to performance, right. So, what kind of businesses we have to be, what are the strategy at the corporate level that we need to adopt. Then at the business level, you have to see that how are we going to compete with other major businesses, right. So, if you are having different business, so each business unit might be having a different strategy, right. One can go for growth, other can go for diversification, another can go for strategic alliances, right. Another business unit can go for mergers and acquisitions, right. So, different business units can have different kind of strategies. Then coming to operational strategy at the functional level, we have to see that how these business departments are going to support a business unit in terms of what they do. So, you have to identify what could be your strategy related to HR, what could be your marketing strategy, what could be your product strategy, right. So, the idea here is that these functional strategy contribute to achieving business strategies, or they also need to be aligned with the business strategy, and then this business strategy need to contribute and to be aligned and has to be consistent with the corporate strategy, right. So, here we have talked about different kind of strategy, and here what we have presented here is a hierarchy of a strategy, that is at the corporate level, then the business level, and also the function at the department level. Now, moving further, here you can see something where we talked about what are the various kind of strategies in general which organizations adopt, right, to compete, right. So, they adopt different kind of strategies in order to ensure that they are going to achieve competitive advantage. This could be in terms of cost, market strategy, new product development, okay, going for expansion or diversification. So, when you are thinking about a strategy, you basically think that how we are going to achieve these strategies, okay, and there could be other factors which also contribute to this strategy, which could be related to the environment, it could be structure, okay, it could be culture also, though we are not discussing it here, but they also have a role to play when it comes to defining about the kind of strategy that you are going to have. You might have a growth strategy when you want to grow and expand. You want to go for diversification, either related area and unrelated areas, right. You want to go for new product development, you want to dominate the market, you want to compete on the basis of the cost, right. You might be moving towards price leadership or what we call cost leadership, okay, or you want to go for cost advantage, right. So, there could be different strategies that organizations adopt, like you go for business re-engineering, downsizing or right sizing could be a part of their strategy, where you want to reduce the headcount to sustain and grow in the market, right, or you want to go for delayering, where you go for restructuring, right. So, these are the different type of strategy which an organization goes in order to survive and grow. Okay. So, we talked about two kind of things related to strategy, that is there has to be some kind of alignment and consistency across strategy at different levels, right. Second, we talked about what could be various types of strategy. Basically, we are referring to these points, right. What could be the various type of strategies which are important for the organization in order to achieve competitive advantage. Now, moving further, we have to see that what kind of role HR is going to play in the process. Okay. Do you think that HR is going to be involved in identifying strategies for the organization? Yes, HR has to act as a strategic business partner, right, and it is possible only when they know about the business. Okay. So, if HR people know about the business, they would be able to contribute in setting the strategy, executing the strategy, and also implementing the strategy. At different levels of a strategy, they can contribute. Okay. Now, some of the roles which they can perform here, as discussed, is like they are going to communicate about the strategic plan to the employees. Okay, this is the strategy of the organization, and we have to see whether we are able to achieve it or not. Now, in order to achieve any kind of a strategy, whether it is new product development or going for price leadership or going for diversification and expansion or global expansion, whatever strategy you are going to have, you have to see that whether people are competent enough or not, and that is where the HR contributes most. So, you need to ensure as a HR professional that you are able to develop those competencies, okay, which is required in order to execute a strategy and implement it at the operational level, right. Now, this is not the only thing. You also need to see that when it comes to setting the strategy for the organization, okay. So, your role here is that how you are going to train top management, so that they know that how they are going to set the vision and mission, how they are going to identify the kind of a strategy that they should have. So, here you are going to ensure the kind of knowledge that is needed at different levels for not only successfully implementing strategies, but also identifying what kind of a strategy would be required, right, by the organization. Another important function is that when you are talking about successful implementation of strategies leading to higher performance, so you also need to link it with the reward. So, you are going to propose a suitable reward system, which is going to help the implementation, because if you have a reward system in place, the employee would be motivated enough to perform well and to support the business plan. If it does not happen, probably it is not going to happen. So, you need to propose a reward system which, so that when employees are going to implement, they are motivated enough and support the strategic plan, right. So, after discussing about the role of the strategic plan, we have to see that how we develop a strategic plans at different levels. Okay. See, we have just talked about that a strategic plan is going to be different in case of corporate strategy, business unit, and at the operational level, which further percolates down at the individual level also, right. You remember we talked about mission, vision, goals and strategies, right. So, this must clearly align with and be congruent and consistent with the vision, mission of every business unit. For example, there could be a corporate vision, but at the same time there could be a separate vision for a particular business unit. Say for example, Tata Group of Industries. At the corporate level, they might have a different kind of vision and mission statement. But if you look at different units of the Tata Group, right, say Tata Consultancy, Tata Motors, Tata Steel, so they might be having their own vision and mission statements. So, what I mean to say here is that ensure that the vision and mission statements of every business unit, whether it is Tata Motors, whether it is Tata Steel, or whether it is Tata Consultancy Services, is aligned and congruent with the corporate vision and mission statement. Otherwise, what will happen? If it is not congruent, probably it will not be able to contribute to the goals and objectives of the organization as a whole or the corporate as a whole. Okay. So, when we are talking about a strategic plan, we have to identify vision and mission. We also need to identify the goals and strategies. Okay. And these goals and strategies are going to be defined at different levels, starting with the corporate level, business unit level, operational level, and further down to the individual level. So, in the process, what happens, and what is more important is that creating strategic plans at the business unit level, right. So, each division or unit have to create its own vision statement, mission statement, should have its own strategic plan, but because the businesses are going to be different. Tata Steel, you are into a different business. Tata Consultancy, you are in IT products and services. Tata Motors, you are in automobiles, right. So, these are the different business units of the Tata Group. So, each of these strategic units have to have their own vision and mission statements and their own strategic plans. Okay. But at the same time, it has to be consistent with the Tata Group's overall plan and objectives which they have set for themselves, right. So, here we are talking about alignment across different levels. So, look at these examples. It is an IT company, big multinational IT company, right. Microsoft. Now, what Microsoft suggests here? At Microsoft, we work to help people and business throughout the world realize their potential. Okay. This is the mission. What are the values? What is the strategy that they have adopted? Right? Commitment to the customers and partners, passion for technology, working with integrity, honesty, openness, excellence, criticism, okay, and taking up challenges, right. So, and thinking about themselves as being responsible to the customers, shareholders and others in the process. So, now what it suggests that, look at this, the vision and mission statement has to be consistent and congruent with each other, right. So, with this example of Microsoft, we move further and see that why we need a consensus about strategies and goals across strategic units. See what we have been talking about. We talked about hierarchy of a strategy at different levels, right, starting with the corporate strategy, business unit strategy, cascading down to business units and then operational level for each business unit, right, and then at the individual level. Okay. Now, what is more important is that there has to be consensus across these units so far as strategy and goals are concerned, because each one of them are going to contribute to organizational performance as a whole. So, when we are talking about it, it means that you have to say that how various units, business units of the organization agree on a common set of strategic priority. Okay. So, though there could be differences in the strategy, but most of these strategies basically help you to achieve the goals and objectives of the organization as such, right. So, if there is greater consensus, you expect better performance, right, though it is not necessary, because even if there is a consensus, some of the units might be performing better than others, but then how we are going to explain it. So, it may or may not be related to the strategy, right. So, you need to identify the goals and strategy for that particular unit, or you decide whether you want to have goals first or strategy later, right. So, there are two different contradicting opinions. First you have a agreement on a strategy, whether you are going for low cost or differentiation or whatever it is, and based on this strategy you decide about the goal. The second opinion is that first you decide about the goals that is to be achieved and then you talk about the strategy, right. So, there could be different opinions, either you go for a goal and then go for a strategy, or you decide about the strategy and then you think about the goal, right. But whatever you want to do, you ensure that it is going to predict performance of the organization. Now, how this alignment happens? See, we have been talking about different levels. So, there could be units strategic plan, which is basically nothing but what are their vision, mission, goals and strategies, right. And this comes from where? It comes from organization's strategic plan, what is their vision, mission, goals and strategies we have been talking about. So, organizational strategic plan has to be congruent and consistent with unit strategic plan, all units is not just one unit. Then you also need to see that this leads to individuals performance. So, you identify what are the competencies that is required, what they have to do, okay, and then how it leads to individual and team performance. So, in terms of the behaviors, results and developments, these kind of things. Now, all these are critical. Okay. So, you have to see that when you are going to decide about the strategic plan at the organizational level, at the unit level or even at the individual level, ensure that there is a participation of all the employees or all the levels of management in defining about the strategic plan at different levels. Now, moving further, we talked about positions or job descriptions. That is very, very important, because you need to identify that these jobs and competencies that people have is matching with, in order to achieve the goals and objectives of the organizations, because if it is not matching, then probably whatever you are going to do is not going to support the vision and mission of the organization. So, ensure that the competencies are matching with the requirement of the job. Then you also need to see that how individuals and teams are performing, because individuals and teams contribute to the goals and objectives of the organization, right. So, make sure that you have a system which motivate employees, where the development plan of the individual is aligned with the priorities of the organization, and it is possible only when you are going to develop employees with those competencies which is matching with the requirement of the organization, right. Now, what are the choices that you have here when you are going to design a performance management system based on what we have discussed related to strategic plan? Okay. Now, the choices include what are the criteria that you are using for evaluating performance, behaviors or results, that we will take up later. Who is going to participate and what is the level of participation, right? Employees, others, high level participation or low level participation. whether you are using short term criteria for evaluating or long term criteria for evaluating performance. What is the level of the criteria? Whether we are measuring individual performance or group performance. What is the orientation? Whether we are measuring the performance for administrative regions or developmental regions. We have discussed most of these points earlier also. Then whether it is linked with performance or not. So, pay for performance is very, very important, whether it is merit based or whether it is seniority based, and then you also need to look at appropriateness of the reward for performance. So, make sure that when you are going to compensate people for better performance, it is valued by the employees, otherwise the reward will not have any value for the employees, right. So, these are some of the issues related to this. Now, for this you need to build support from the top management and at different levels, so that they get engaged, they participate in the process, then they also understand that okay, this is the kind of system in which we are going to be there. Now, when we are talking about what we have discussed in the lecture basically is this one. See, we talked about, starting with this one, we talked about organizational strategic plan, vision, mission, goals and strategies. Then we move further, it is unit strategic plan like vision, mission, goals and strategies. Then we talked about the position of the job description, and finally we talked about the last point, that is individual performance. Now, this is an example that I have taken here to explain that how this alignment happens, and this is a case of bank. So, here the vision, goals and strategies are identified for the bank, right. It is a financial institution, so they want to provide a range of services, products, okay, in the market, and their goal is to see that they are able to attract and retain the best staff who is highly motivated and productive, okay, and pursue revenue generating activities, okay. And the strategy is basically they are going to see that this is at the branch level, at what you call the unit level or the department level. So, make sure that the strategies are consistent with their goals, strategies and profit objectives, and it is going to contribute to the bank performance. Then, if you look at the mission at the department level, the idea is that yes, you have a knowledge management system, you have a decision making abilities of the branch managers, so that they are able to minimize losses and increase profits for the organization. So, the idea here is that each branch is supposed to have its own objectives or mission in terms of maximizing the profitability of the business. Then moving to the role of HR manager, we also discussed about it. So, the HR manager has to see that yes, people have those competencies, motivations, talent that is required in order to succeed. And finally, we are talking about the individual performance. Individual has to have responsibilities, standards, expected goals that is to achieve, and what is to be done to see that they are able to improve their performance. And then based on this, we will be able to see that how this alignment happens, a strategic alignment happens at different levels, starting with vision, mission, goals and objectives. Thank you very much.